Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
And I'm Dr. Leviathan.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories most creepy and most pasta. Tonight we've got...
That wasn't my husband sleeping beside me.
Thank you, Leviathan. Yes. This is on the Reddit...
It's a longer title.
Yeah. This is on the Reddit NoSleep Threads. It is a 6-parter as far as I can tell. And it was done by one TorontoScared1. So, just if you want to go check it out before the podcast, there you go.
3 days later, when you come back to listen to this, the cultist here is going to do that old joke that he always does.
Alright, welcome back.
In case you can't tell from the joking, this is a longer one, so...
Yeah.
The synopsis is probably going to be very brief. This will be one of those ones that, even listening to us,
you're not going to grasp
you
the full
could
thing.
still go read it and find lots of new shit.
Yeah.
But we'll try and cover all of the main points.
Yeah. Beginning with the first section. First part introduces the main character, which is Peter... I don't know, I can't remember his last name.
Which threw me for a loop, because I was like... Okay, this is the person who slept beside not their husband. I didn't realize that this
is a gay couple.
I mean,
yeah.
I quickly realized, but I was like,
it's...
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm down with this.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Exactly, yeah. It was. I didn't mind it at all. It was just interesting. So, yeah, this guy, Peter, he's waiting for his husband to come back, Christopher, and he's off in, like, London or off in Venice or something,
in Europe.
Yeah, and they usually call, they don't text each other because that's their thing, to make it more personal and stuff. But for some reason, he hasn't called yet, and then he finally gets a text message from from Chris, and it's, like, all, like, really bad, like, gibberish kind of thing.
It's
like...
really bad, it's lazy typing.
Yeah, it's, like, worse than, like, elite typing. And stuff. So it just looks like somebody just got the basics of language onto the screen.
I am typing you a text message.
Yeah, just saying that like he's coming home. That he was late or something like that. So Christopher comes home and there's not anything really wrong with him. He's got the suitcase. He puts it down, and it looks like maybe there's something wrong with his lip, but otherwise he's just happy to see Peter, and at
this point, Peter's already gone to bed.
Yeah.
So when Christopher comes home, Peter's already in bed, and everything's fine.
Except for...
But everything's just a little bit off.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, like, he puts his arm around him.
Like, if you've ever been in one of those long-term relationships...
You can tell when something's
Yeah,
off.
and there's something... I mean... This is different, but like when something's bothering that significant other, and you just know, even though they haven't even said a word to you, something's wrong with them.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that, but bigger.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's one of the things is that he puts his arm around him while they're in bed, and Peter notices that Chris seems wrong, thicker,
yeah,
and it's
thicker.
like. Yeah, and it's just weird to him. So the night passes, wakes up in the morning, Chris is gone, his suitcase is downstairs and stuff.
And a horrible
and a weird smell, like steak left out a couple of days. And he gets a text message from Peter from Chris. Oh God, this is gonna be confusing. From Christopher, and he's after calling him, and it's just. No reply, and then
I went
gets
to the
gym,
message. And
yeah, exactly.
See you. I'll be home after you leave. Blah blah blah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Peter goes to work.
Yeah.
The suitcase stinks, but
yeah, exactly.
Honestly, that's all.
It just
moved into the garage.
Yeah, he moves into the garage because it
smells. And then
smells.
Peter goes to work.
And while he's at work, he gets an actual phone call from Chris, and Chris is still in London.
Dun, dun,
Dun, dun. So he just kind of freaks out a little bit.
That totally wasn't my husband who slept beside me last night.
Exactly. Then we get the...
he said the name of the thing.
So he's just got like arriving and so that, and like the story kind of updates you because it almost the story is written like an actual like a post on a website, like maybe on the thread itself. It's like, and then he leaves updates like update. I picked up. It's been a couple of hours. Picked up Chris from the airport. We're not going home, or I'm trying to convince him not to go home, or something like that. And then the story kind of ends there for part 1. So then part 2 comes around, and eventually, like Chris, is being very skeptical about the whole matter, and just wants them to go home. And so they, after some pleading and failed pleading, Peter takes them home. He tries to convince him by they rush home to show him, so he can show him the suitcase, and he opens up the garage door and it's empty, like there's no suitcase. So he's kind of distraught a little bit. Chris is having none of this stuff, so he just kind of goes inside to get cleaned up and stuff because it's jet lag and whatnot.
Chris has a shower and he's like, "Are you coming to bed?" And he's like, "Blah," and then
I'm not going.
He's like, "No, let's go." And Chris is just like, "Okay, let's go stay at a hotel."
Yeah, so they go stay at their favorite hotel and whatnot, and then, oh my god, and then they get to the hotel and there's already a room for him.
Yeah,
he's already
Christopher has already checked in.
Yeah,
and he stepped out to get his husband.
Dun, dun, what? And so they like, well, that's kind of weird. So he goes to.
They go up to the room,
and it's reeking, like it's horrible smell. But there's nothing wrong with the room itself except for the fact that there's a briefcase there. But that's it. I believe the briefcase is still there.
You mean suitcase?
Sorry, the suitcase.
Regardless, they book it out of there.
Yeah,
and go to their friend Anthony's house.
Yes, and they're getting text messages from. Are they still getting text messages from other Chris?
Not off the top of my head. Either way, it doesn't matter.
We would like to apologize because it was a long story.
Yeah, there's.
And I read this a while back, and then I tried to reread it, and it's been a little difficult. So, regardless, yeah, they get to Anthony's place. Anthony has a gift that was given to him by Christopher because Christopher dropped by, and they open up the gift, and it has like messages in it, like a times, right?
Yeah, it has like an itinerary.
Yeah, and it's again done in that weird like typed language or that weird like basic language, like basic
almost
writing,
like phonetically spelled.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and sometimes just
gibberish.
Almost like a missed key where you hit the key beside.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and it kind of chronicles what they were doing the whole time, and then eventually so they decide to get out of there. And they go to a Tim Hortons, just outside of the police department.
Yeah, just across the road.
Just so they can figure out so that nothing weird happens or anything like that.
And
or
if we have any American or non-Canadian listeners, a Tim Hortons is
a coffee shop.
It's probably the biggest chain of anything in Canada.
Yeah.
Sometimes in some cities you can walk 10 feet and find the next one. Yeah.
So yeah, they were waiting in the Tim Hortons just outside, just down the street or just across the street from the police department, so that nothing goes bad or anything like that. And they're keeping an eye, and he's typing this away, this whole post as they're in that coffee shop, and then that's the end of part 2. Part 3 is when they is when they're still waiting there, and then they roll up the. Here's another thing about Tim Hortons is that they have sometimes every couple of months they have a roll up the rim to win contest where you roll up the rim of the coffee cup to get either please try again, or hey, you win a car or a coffee or blah blah blah. So they're rolling up their rims and they get messages in the roll up the rims.
I think Anthony's the only one that gets the message.
Oh, is it Anthony? Okay.
Yeah, because
I remember
the message is something along the lines of like, "Why are you here?"
Yeah. So yeah, obviously this thing or this other Chris doesn't want Anthony.
Well, these events are around Christopher and Peter.
Yeah. So they and then they're like looking around, and then they notice that there's somebody in the coffee shop that they didn't realize was there. Like, they're not sure if he...
They actually calm down, and then a kid says, "What's wrong with your lip?" And they're all like,
"Oh, shit."
And then they realize that it's not Christopher, but Christopher.
Yeah, it's other Christopher. Nigga Christopher, or whatever. Don't look.
That sounded bad. Just gotta say.
All right.
Well, let's just call him not Christopher.
Okay. All right. So they've like, they're out of there. Like, they go straight to their car, and they're driving to, or they just drive right across the road.
They drive across the street to the cop station.
And then they try to get out of their car, but the car suddenly is locked. And then they realize they're not in their car; they're in other Christopher's car, because it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
Minus, I think, a jacket or something, or plus a jacket. I don't know.
No, it was the exact same.
Okay. So, other Christopher is just walking across the road over to them, and they can't get out.
And the stink starts coming through the vents, and not Christopher, singles out Anthony, and is like, you have no part in this. Why are you here? I got nothing to do with you. And then just walks away.
Yeah, he just walks away. So the door opens, or the door unlocks, and they go running out to the police department, to the police station. And I think one of them gets sick or something like that, or like feigns sickness.
Yeah, Anthony
or just throws up because of like
basically
the craziness.
Has a panic attack.
Yeah,
like basically just driven too far too fast.
Yeah.
Not literally.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're describing this very briefly.
Yeah.
So, like there's a lot of, like, there's interesting parts of this story. Like,
there are a lot of little things that we are completely ignoring.
Because it's just a rundown.
So,
they get their, they take the
Yeah, when they first walk in, an officer, comes up and is like, "Oh my God, what the hell?" And, "Let's get your friends some help," and blah, blah, blah.
Take statements.
So Christopher and Peter take the cop outside, and the car that they came over in is gone, and it's just their real car across the street. So they take him over and, file the report, obviously omitting
all
of the supernatural stuff. All of the shit that can't be explained, they leave out. And, they kind of realize that, wow, it sounds really flimsy.
Yeah, exactly. So, eventually they decide to go to Peter's mother's place, and Peter is actually part of he's a physicist, and he's part of a very well-to-do family and stuff, and his mother's just a couple, just in the area.
Yeah.
They don't really give specifics, they just kind of mention that they're in Toronto, and they mention some landmarks, but that's about it. So they go over to the mother's place, and the valet takes the car, and there's something weird going on with the valet and with the service in general. Like, some of the people are just acting a little bit more. I don't know if maybe they're supposed to be, because they're they're valet and they're service people. But I don't know, I just thought I got the impression that something was off about them. Like, there was.
I don't know. I got the impression that they were completely normal until the valet says that weird thing.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember. Oh, something about you'll find the suitcase.
Yeah, okay.
Because they opt out of the valet service, park their own car, and the valet brings the elevator down to the parking garage, which, I just thought was, nice.
Yeah.
Because it's the middle of the night at this point.
Yeah.
And then as they're, when they get to the floor of Peter's mother's condo, they're getting out of the elevator, and Peter's the last one, and the valet says something about, "Oh, don't worry, I'm sure you'll find the suitcase." But the other two miss it.
Yeah.
And Peter's all freaked out.
Oh, shit. What's going on? So, anyways, they go upstairs to the mother. The mother seems very, not really distressed at first by what they tell her. Probably because she is stoned. Because I think she was smoking it up in the balcony, off the balcony, I believe. But eventually she hears the story a little bit more, and then needs to talk to
the crazy parts, and then she freaks out at her son,
and then later on, while they're kind of in a very why the hell is all this happening, and blah blah blah. The mother kind of takes him out to the balcony and explains the history of their family, because apparently it's a doozy. As it turns out, the reason their family was so successful was because his dad essentially seems to have made a deal with something, possibly a devil. You're not quite sure at this point, but it makes a deal with some guy that he met back when they were younger, and suddenly he gets fortunes and he gets famous, like wealthy and stuff.
Every decision he makes about money and the stock market just wins.
Yeah, like
the guy can do no wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sure. It seems like if he tried to lose money, he'd still make money hand over fist.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff happens. Then a couple of years later, they encounter the thing again, or the person again. And does he try to take the kid then, or does he
never tries
goes
to
to
take
see?
the kid?
Okay.
She's pregnant, first off, so that would be really, really messy.
Right, yeah.
But he lets them know that, okay, yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying your success, but
there's a cost to be paid.
All debts get paid.
Yeah.
And when it's time, it's time.
Yeah, and then it explains why the father's not around. Is that the mother found him.
He died.
Yeah, he just died. He just died. Sorry,
totally natural.
And then and then there was also, but there was an encounter at the funeral.
Yes.
Yeah, and then so he gets that kind of revelation that his parents essentially made some weird deal. And then there was
when they saw whatever it was in the park when his mother was pregnant with him, it looked just like his father.
Yeah. Except with some kind of
like
reflection.
how now it's looking like Christopher.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a different one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But regardless.
So, yeah, and then I think shortly after this, we get the revelation about how they're wondering why is it why is it doing this stuff? Does he find out from Christopher what happened when Peter, because Peter was a druggie at one point, and then was into some.
You mean when he died?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Does that happen? Is that explained?
To the best of my memory, and honestly, I'm just not looking it up again.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
But yeah, he.
Peter's told that he did die. I think in the night, sometime between the funeral thing and now, from a car crash or something, or some kind of accident. But really? I thought it was an accident
overdose,
or something.
Dude.
Okay, overdose.
It was
a
party thing.
Right, yeah, okay. Ah.
I don't even know where you got car accident.
I don't know.
But yeah, he died, and he wasn't just dead for a couple of minutes. It's not like he flatlined on an operating table and was immediately resuscitated. He was dead for over an hour.
Yeah.
So anyone who knows anything, there's no coming back from that.
Yeah. And then a nurse or someone came in. A doctor came in.
Dr. Megan or something.
Yeah. Asked Christopher while he's crying and grieving, gives him a deal, I believe. And
yeah, he's the doctor's like, oh yeah, we can totally make this better. And he's all like, well, why aren't you? Basically the doctor walks out and takes Christopher and Peter's mother to Peter, who's just fine, sitting in a hospital bed waiting for them.
Yeah, doesn't even know what's going on, as far as I know. But yeah, and then as it turns out, and then Christopher didn't realize this at the time, but now thinks all back on it. It's that person shouldn't have been there or something when he went to go thank her or thank them. Yeah. So
and there was no Dr. Megan at the hospital that worked at the hospital. Not just that night, just ever. At that time. Yeah. Well, not ever, mayhap, but at that time there was no Dr. Megan employed at that hospital.
Yeah. So he gets all this kind of stuff just built, dropped on him and stuff. And he spends some time kind of recollecting and trying to recall this stuff. And then he sees not Christopher on the balcony. And so he just, and this is after so this is the next morning, I guess. And so he goes out there and confronts not Christopher, and he's essentially just given the old, it comes to full circle, and it's revealed that he's got a debt to collect, or these guys are. This thing is like some kind of a debt collector for the wishes or for like whatever for the miracles they've been performing.
Basically, yeah, like a balance keeper.
Yeah, and then we also find out why the smell from the suitcase. But it's like really
it's not decaying flesh like like it smells like it's unreached potential, or
it's like decayed potential, or like it's like a really weird like it's an interesting idea. Like I remember reading, I was like,
instead of
cool.
being dead flesh, it's a metaphysical thing.
Because as it turns out, these things are like some kind of cosmic balance keepers, or that go across the universe, I guess, doing things and then doing
what they do
and then collecting the debts for those things. And so like Peter has a debt to collect, and he has to go into the briefcase in the suitcase to be collected effectively. So he decides, like, after, like, this is again really paraphrasing, or not even paraphrasing, just like synopsizing the whole thing. He decides to make the choice and go into the suitcase, and then like a bright flash, like there's a bright light, and then suddenly he's like everything's normal. He
comes to at his desk at
work, yeah, and rushes to his car to try and calls Christopher or his mom or something like that. Nobody's answering.
He uses the voice dialer to
on like Siri or something
call
like that.
Christopher,
and he's like, call mother,
calling mother, and he's like, well, I know it must be real because it's not working.
Yeah, which is funny. It's a nice little like quip against Siri and all those things. But
I laughed.
Yeah. And then he gets
one of the maids, and then he's and the maid is using his maiden name.
Yeah. And it's like, what?
That's messed up. And he's like, why are you calling me that? And she's like, oh, would you rather Peter? And he's like, what the hell?
And then the big reveal is that Christopher no longer exists.
Well,
or is no
their
longer...
love never happened.
Yeah, like, it's somehow either, like, time has been reversed or something... Chris has been removed from the equation.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what the payment was for the debt.
Yeah.
And then he even gets... was it a text message or, like, just a note or something? No, yeah, he goes home, like, kind of really depressed and all that stuff, and goes through, like, a bunch of albums.
Everything in the house is
just
like,
him. And
is just slightly different, like, where their degrees were...
It's just his.
It's just Peter's degrees, and like, it's not that Christopher's are just missing, it's that they're arranged because...
It was only one person.
There was only one person, so there isn't room for someone else's.
Yeah, and he's going through one of the photo albums, and he's just seeing
he goes to where their wedding album was.
Right, okay,
and it's just, a normal photo album.
Yeah.
And it's, full of pictures of him and his friends, living life and having fun. And there's no Christopher anywhere. And then the last page has a note or whatever, like, bam, collected.
Yeah. In that bad, like,
that
phonetic,
horrible grammar
thing. And that's where the story ends, is that, so that's the price he had to pay for all this bullshit that happened. And it leaves you at that. And I really liked that part of the story. Like, I liked that ending. Like, it was like a nice little twist, because you were like expecting him to be sacrificed and stuff. But
yeah, I was expecting, as I was reading, I really kind of had the thought process of, okay, it's sounding like, not Christopher is going to take him, like, is going to take Peter, and I was like, well, then how is this,
being told?
How is the last one going to be? And I was like, oh, is Christopher going to post it, or is Anthony?
Yeah, that would have been really cool too. But yeah,
well, no, that just would have been a way to get around it. And then it's like, oh, you just never got to meet, because
the love of your life. Essentially,
the way I pictured this happening was, it didn't even take Christopher. It didn't remove him from existence. It just
removed the event that caused
them from meeting.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is both horribly tragic, and yet at the same time it wasn't, like, as vulgar as killing someone.
Yeah. It was
makes any sense.
Yeah,
like,
no, it was a lot more complex.
And by going less vulgar, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
and that's just horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so now that the synopsis is out of the way, we apologize for how bad that was probably sounded. But we got the main gist of it done.
We did not do this story justice. It's just such a long read, and we don't want to be here for 3 hours.
Yeah. So, yeah, when I first started reading this, like a while back, I think I got through like a couple of the chapters first, and then like put it down for like a day, and then finished it. And I really could have probably just left it like at certain end, like the ends of certain parts, because the cliffhangers at the ends of some of these parts were really well done. Like you could have just stopped right there, and that would have been an ideal creepypasta. Like we're waiting in the Tim Hortons for the thing to come at us. We're not sure what's going to happen in the next couple of minutes, and then like ending the post there, and that would have been fine.
Well, and I think that's part of the
charm or allure
part of why this worked, and
Yeah.
part of why I'm sure some people read this as it was posted, and
we're wondering what the hell's
that would have
next.
worked really, really well, not being able to go to the next post yet.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion, that
Yeah.
would have worked really well. But it also made it work really well to...
As a whole.
To read start to finish. I mean...
Yeah, because I was not
I read
sure...
half of it, and then I, stepped away from it for a day just because this is really long for a creepypasta,
Yeah.
so I wasn't... I wasn't geared up to read all of this in one sitting.
Yeah. I'm also really sad to know that there is no reading of this creepypasta in full.
I understand why. It's a long ass.
There's one segment of it. The first part is read online on YouTube. I can't remember the guy's name, but I'll leave it in the comment section or in the description. And it's an okay reading. It's summarily creepy because it's all done in hushed tones. As if somebody's typing it away on a
almost like someone's like whispering it.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that way. But nobody's done a full reading of this, which I'm surprised because it is really well.
If someone started with part 1, maybe they're just getting around to it all.
Actually, the description said that he wasn't going to do. He loved the story, but this was his favorite one. That's probably the only one he's going to do. Unless it changes, but that was what I read on the descriptor. Because I was wondering if he was planning on doing any more, but yeah.
But yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all.
It is a long
because
read.
it is. I mean, just with how we had to synopsis, and just
how probably
ignore
rough that was.
Total parts of the story.
Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna say, let's just go on record now. Read this story, at least from my end. If you want to get some really cool pieces of literature of just some pieces of creepiness and stuff, read the story.
Yeah, I would definitely read it, if for no other reason than to catch everything we missed in the synopsis.
Yeah, because it was rough.
We couldn't, like I said, we don't want to be here for 3 hours, and
that's probably how long. Well, I'm pretty sure that's how long it took me to read it the first time.
To go over it and then to delve into it, it would be just an incredibly long audio file, and that's just not going to be fun. And
it's just not good for this our format. So.
For our forum, it wouldn't be good.
Yeah. So we're just really just going to go over what we liked and what we didn't like and stuff about this.
This is already going to be a long podcast anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so we a lot of these episodes. These were all well written to me anyway. To somebody who just reads them doesn't really know all the workings of good writing. And I felt like every every part of this you could cut it off at any part of the story, but the constant expansions just helped to expand. It didn't hurt the stories at all as a whole.
Yes and no, because at the end of it, it's all very thoroughly and nicely explained.
Okay, so the last two maybe could have been omitted.
And things are, I'm not saying yay or nay, really. It's just a matter of sometimes things are better left unexplained, and sometimes that's just a better story. I did like the explanation you got. It actually gave it a nice turn, change of pace.
Yeah.
Especially with going back and, telling this story that started, during World War II.
Yeah, and how everything got, how their lives were all affected by this thing.
Yeah, that was fine. But I could see how some people, I didn't have a problem with it, but I can see how some people would be like, oh, I wish it wasn't explained.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes ambiguity is really good, sometimes an exposition is really just as fine.
And I like ambiguity a lot of the time, but I wasn't pissed off by knowing everything.
Yeah.
This story, it worked. It was, probably because it was well done. I mean, if I'm gonna nitpick, there's a couple of grammar and spelling mistakes, but
and not
really,
just the messages from
yeah, outside of the text messages and the notes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I only noticed those because there were so few of them.
Yeah. So they just
if that makes any sense, the majority of this is very well written, well done, and the fact that the author took the time to write what is a really long creepypasta.
Yeah, and do it well.
Was just refreshing for me, because they didn't rush through their story. Even because sometimes...
Well, we dealt with Amelia last week.
So. Some of the times when we've read really long ones, it seems like they're doing a really good job, and then when they get to the end, they're just, they kind of just vomit it all out, and here you go, everything's happened.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it got to the end, and it still took its time.
Yeah.
A part that we didn't cover where, when not Christopher, I think it's the second time on the balcony,
mm-hmm.
and Peter freaks out and runs away and can't find anyone and can't get downstairs. The elevator doesn't work. The door to the doorknob for the stairwell is super hot and burns his hand. That didn't have to be there.
No.
That could have totally not been written, but they took, they kept it in there. It took their time, but at the same time...
It was entertaining still.
Didn't feel like they were just prolonging it.
Yeah.
Which is humorous, because really that's what it did, but it didn't feel like it. It still felt worth reading.
Exactly, yeah. Like I said, it was entertaining the way they wrote it. The way they delivered it.
So, in case you can't tell, I'm kind of all over this thing's dick. Just saying.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I enjoyed it.
This is another one of those awesome and unfortunately rare stories that elevates the art form.
Yeah.
This is no Jeff the Killer. This is no Russian sleep experiment. God, I feel like I just said this a couple of weeks ago, this is my new favorite.
What was Christmas Tree was the last one.
Yeah, Christmas Tree was a really good one, but
this one, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to belittle that one, because that's still... This one doesn't knock Christmas Tree down. This one just... It makes the scale bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, this one just took its time and wasn't afraid to be long.
Mm-hmm.
And
I also liked how,
for everyone who didn't read this because it was so long, I mean, even
you're doing
the title's
it injustice.
Long. Yeah. Backtrack and go read this.
Because seriously, it is worth the read.
Yeah, I mean...
Like I said...
even if you just read a part a day and it takes you a week to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
fine,
in fact,
do it that way.
Actually, that would be a really good way to do it.
Each part
is a day,
each part is about the length of a good-sized creepypasta as well. So it's not as daunting when you read it if you were to read it that way.
Yeah.
Unlike me, who basically had to marathon the whole thing just to have it read in time for the recording.
And me, who tried to read through it to get reread through it to get into or to get familiar again with it. Speaking of familiarity, I liked how the story is both very familiar if you're from Toronto or from Ontario, in terms of its location, describing where the characters live and where the environment they're interacting in, and at the same time gives enough detail that I feel that somebody else, not from Canada, would also be able to understand what's going on, or get familiar with the
they explained our roll up the rim thing.
Yeah.
Why? And I was like, why are they explaining this? And then I was like, oh, it's because you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, not too farther along, and yep, they used it, and I was like, saw it coming, didn't care.
Yeah. Like, even, like, when I first started reading this, I remember actually checking out some of the places they had talked about, like, the hotel is actually, they say which hotel they were staying at. I actually went on Google Map and looked it up just to see if it actually existed, and it actually does exist, which I thought was very interesting and cool.
You're weird, I don't know why you do that. I just assumed that with the level of detail that they were giving, that, it was, you don't get that kind of detail unless it's accurate, usually. I mean, there are rare exceptions to that rule, but...
Yeah.
And, I mean, just to go into how worth it to read it, even after listening to our quick synopsis, Anthony was barely mentioned in our synopsis, and he's actually, a
major role.
Yeah, I mean...
And we learned things about Anthony.
Yeah.
that are really interesting.
There's lots of shit about Anthony that we just...
Oh, I think they mentioned that the smell is actually the smell of guilt and all that, and negative, something negative from people, or like dark secrets and stuff. No? I'm pretty sure I read that in this. But anyways, yeah, it's something that was something in the story. Like, definitely read it for just the little bits, like the little moments that we completely and utterly ignored in our synopsis.
That aren't integral to the story,
but are fun
add
little
to the story.
Yeah,
because very little is said that doesn't come up.
Yeah,
like there's very little mentioned that doesn't actually get mentioned again or something.
Yeah,
there's always a point for something being said.
Yeah,
and it was really well, it was well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm really trying to get across with that. It's not just well written. It's not just a cool, creepy idea. Because honestly, I didn't really find the idea of that.
Yeah, the ending
that
was interesting.
Big of a deal. I was like, oh, it's a boring invasion of the body snatchers, which it turned out it wasn't. But I just wasn't overly excited about the idea. But it was well thought out. It was well done, beautifully executed, well written. Just everything about this isn't your typical creepypasta. This is literature.
Yeah. It's probably one of the best written creepypastas we've had to read or that I've read in my career of reading creepypastas.
Yeah, this is
and I've read a bunch more than
this
was actually done. So
this was probably, like I say, the best joy.
Yeah,
like the most joy I've gotten out of reading a creepypasta for these podcasts, especially for these podcasts. And this one is why I agreed to do this.
Yeah.
This story right here, this is one of the reasons that I didn't know existed, but I knew had to exist.
And you're glad you're richer for it.
Exactly. This was really good. Honestly, if you're a fan of creepypastas, if you're a fan of literature, if you're a fan of just a good story. And
some interesting ideas for it. Yeah. Go to Reddit's NoSleep thread and check this out.
Yeah, I definitely...
I
didn't actually predict the ending of this. It
was kind of hard.
I wasn't surprised when it came around, because it totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think, leading up to the ending, I didn't think this was how it was going to end. And that was, that aspect on its own
is
worth enough to me, but the fact that I enjoyed the whole ride is just something that I cannot state enough, even though you're probably sick of hearing me say it.
Yeah. Yeah, and what did you think of anything to say about the entity, the not Christopher, and then the what is essentially the debt collector?
Honestly, it's all even after you know about it.
Yeah,
there's so much you don't know.
I know. Yeah,
and that was really nice. I liked that idea that they just kept it.
Like, yeah, like, I mean, at the beginning of this, like, reading the story at the beginning of this whole thing, I was like, what the hell is this thing? Like, what is this supernatural? What kind of, like, is it? And then, but you don't even realize until the last part,
you still
how
don't know what it is.
big it is, though. Yeah.
And you know nothing about it. And that's just...
In a way, it's kind of terrifying that way. But, like, for the characters in the story.
Yeah.
It's just like your little specks. It's a Lovecraftian thing where you're just little specks for these little... and you have the option to have, like, cool things, but the debt collector is going to show up and take something away.
Yeah.
That's equally valuable. Yeah, no, I like it for that aspect, for sure. And I just like again, like, I could have ended this story at the Tim Hortons scene, or at the end of the Tim Hortons chapter, and it would have been like, what was this like, and I would have never known just how big this thing was.
Yeah, when all of the parts end, because I mean it's a 6-parter, each one ends at a good ending point.
Yeah,
and that's just good.
Yeah. So yeah. Trying to think of anything else worth saying for the story.
Honestly, I like the fact
we've been getting a couple.
It didn't have a lot of bearing on the story. Like, it really could have been changed, and the story could have stayed the same. But I appreciated the fact that it was a gay marriage.
Yeah. It added some variety.
Aside from the fact that at the start it threw me, I was like, Peter's not a name for a wife. But then once, I caught on, okay, we're dealing with a couple of men. Oh, okay, it's a story about a gay couple. All right,
let's
cool.
see where this goes.
Like, like I said, it could have been totally, like, you could have changed Christopher into, Samantha, and it would have been fine. Mm-hmm. It was always fine.
Yeah,
it would have been the same story, and I think that's what I liked about it. It was, it didn't try and make itself...
It didn't yell out that. It just kind of like, this is a thing.
It was what a gay relationship is. It's just a relationship between two people who love each other.
Yeah.
And that's... I liked that. It felt true with that, Like,
yeah, exactly.
The story wasn't written because it was written about, two gay men. It was written because it was written about two people who love each other.
Yeah. And again, foreshadowing for what happens at the very end.
Yeah. It was
like it's like, oh shit. Like, yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Because again, it's all about collecting.
Yeah.
Or collecting the debts. So, yeah, no, it was perfectly fine, suitable. I loved it for, like, the diversity, too. Like, because we've been getting a couple of them where they've been, like, different than what you were used to reading. Like, it's not just, like, in America, it's in Scotland for Christmas Tree. It wasn't just, like, a man and a wife in, like, a man and a woman. It was two lovers, like, a guy and a guy. And it was fine. There's no problem with it.
Well, yeah.
So I appreciated that kind of, like, how we've been finding stories that are a lot more, they're like just diversifying our, like, the top, like, the stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, and honestly, this one being, so close to home, literally.
Yeah, literally.
Was, I appreciate it.
It's a similar thing to 1999 in terms of, like, the environment.
Yeah, but I think this one just did it better.
Yeah, oh yeah,
well,
definitely.
Mostly it was because it was a better story.
Yeah. Also, it wasn't just a small town that, like, might have been missed by anybody living in Ontario. It's the capital of Ontario.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good story. Can't recommend it enough, I think.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's one that, yeah.
Like, if you're going to read a creepypasta and you're up for one that's longer than the usual length of one, give this one a read.
Well, for me, it boils down to, would I rather read, 6 mediocre or, downright shitty creepypastas, or would I rather read one that's 6 times longer than your typical one, but it's all good?
Yeah.
I was actually really, really afraid when I realized just how long this thing was, that it was going to be just, 6 times the amount of shit.
I know, yeah. I was like, And
I was getting really ready to curse you, and then, I read it, and there was no problems, and it went well, and yeah, when it wrapped up, I was like, okay, I'm actually happy I read this.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to tell the cultist.
And then you told the cultist.
No, I didn't. Dun, dun, dun.
All right. Yeah. There's nothing. I mean, I don't think there's really anything else that I can think of.
No.
Because we pretty much covered, like, we got through that really rough synopsis of the story, and then we kind of just, let people know what our opinions of things were on it. So
there's nothing to tear apart.
Yeah,
and that's
it wasn't a bad. It was like the writing was fantastic. The story and the concepts and stuff that were in it were really good and captivating.
It's a good pasta, so it makes for a really, really boring podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So all we can do is just kind of like, if you came on or if you jumped on to listen to this podcast to listen to us like rip a part of a creepypasta, we apologize.
Go back and re-listen to the Russian sleep experiment then.
Yeah,
and then go read that wasn't my husband who slept next to me last night. Yeah.
I like the. It's definitely an interesting title. I kind of would have liked a simpler title, maybe, but that's really nitpicking. That's my nitpick. Is that maybe the title could have been something different, but at the same time, it gets the story across. Like
the title makes me want to know. Well, then what was it? Before reading a single word of the story, the title makes you want to know what the hell it was.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I was kind of in that.
It's also
it's Invasion of the Body Snatcher, but then it totally wasn't.
Yeah, and again, like my mind was constantly like I said, my mind was constantly changing or constantly trying to figure out what was going on up until the very end. And I was like, whoa! At the end, it's like, so this is what's going on. And yeah, like actually that title, like I mean, it does grab. It's like, well, what is that? And it's like, it's also it's also a little annoying when you have to like keep typing it into Google 3 or 4 times, which I had to keep doing this week.
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah,
I'm not going to blame the story.
No,
for
should
that.
you?
I'm going to blame you because you suck and the story is awesome.
Just gonna go leave now. All right, the Dr. Leviathan show.
All right.
Okay, so I think we've told everything we have to say about the story.
Yeah.
Unless you would like to add anything.
No, I think I've given my 25 cents. Damn inflation.
Mm-hmm. If you have any comments, any questions for us, or if you would like to voice your opinion to us,
or if you've read a creepypasta that could knock this one out of my number 1 slot,
which would be impressive.
It would be impressive, or or if you got something that you want to hear me bitch about, because me liking the creepypasta is boring.
Yeah, you can put it in the comment section below wherever this gets posted. We're also on iTunes now, so leave us a review for that. That would be awesome. And you can also send us stuff to our email, which is aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com, where you can also send us suggestions for other creepypastas, like we just mentioned. So, until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
And I'm Dr. Leviathan.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.